Follow me, because this is so important. So somewhere here is my mother, 60, but how old's mom this year? 64 years old. Lovely woman, always smiling. At my sister, never me. But my mom, and by the way, she's not this skinny. This is. But my mom is a pensioner, right? So my mom worked, let's imagine 30 years. And every year, in the 30 years my mom worked, she saved every single month 250 Rand. It's a notional amount. This amount of money was going into something called her pension provision. The money was taken and given, in my mother's case, and it's different companies, to a company you might have heard of called Alexander Forbes. Alexander Forbes took this money and gave it to a company which is called Allen Gray. Allen Gray took this money and bought shares of companies on the JSE. Guys, this is why there's a fight about the PIC right now. Because the PIC is the Public Investment Corporation, which manages money for the GEPF, the Government Employees Pension Fund. The largest employer in the country is the government. So every single month, literally hundreds of billions of rands is being paid by government employees over to the Government Employee Pensions Fund. But the Government Employee Pensions Fund is a fund. It's not an asset manager. So it gives the money to the PIC to manage. The PIC is what we call a fund of funds, because it pulls money from the Government Employee Pensions Fund, the UIF, and several other sources. But money sitting in the bank generates nothing. So what do you do with the money? You invest it. But the PIC doesn't. The PIC is clear. We're in the business of collecting money from funds. We're not in the business of investing. Who is in the business of investing? Old Mutual, Sasfin, Sanlam, Absa stockbrokers, etc., etc. Make sense? So this is the ecosystem. So Alexander Forbes, or the PIC, would be what you call a fund of funds. They pull money together from other funds and they manage it. They give it to someone we call an asset manager. This is what we do. So our license, for instance, those of you who follow our story on social media would have noticed that we partner with a company called RH Managers. RH Managers is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We grandfather on their license, which means today we are raising money so that we can manage money. And to manage that money, I will charge the people I'm managing their money a % of the fee. This is so important you understand this. So these asset managers manage the money. They make the decisions on what share price to buy at which point. When Tongaat Hewlett doesn't publish its updates and the share price falls, these guys have to report it. So what they do is they hire these people called analysts, usually people who trained in finance. I started my career in private equity, and I'll explain to you where this is important, right? But these guys are analysts. They're easy to spot. So easy to spot. They speak big English. They use words like "ya butai," "chisai," "brew," "oh chisa." So their A's are always very flat. That's the first thing. They always wear slim-fitted Khaliq's suits. You can't miss them. The minute you spot them, you're like, I know you bastard. You can't miss them, right? And they sit behind a desk, and usually if you see it in movies, they have 2 screens with charts everywhere, and you don't know what you're looking at, right? Right. So that's analysts and traders. They, every single day, are making decisions. The analysts have a job, and it is to analyze. So they literally spend their time going around and meeting with CEOs of companies that are listed and saying, tell me your story. Tell me about your business. Tell me about your plans. Tell me about what you're doing. Tell me where you're investing. And they will take that and publish a report. And on the back of that report, the stockbrokers will buy the share of that company or not. That's how that economy works. That's why in South Africa today, 25 years into our democracy, we have done dollar transformation. Because the money hasn't moved from where it's circulating. It's sitting on the financial markets. It's not in the real economy. Does this make sense? Okay, at any point if you don't understand what I'm saying, please stop me because it's so important. Now, to your point about this money thing. So the money flows this way, right? And then you buy shares on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and every single day the Johannesburg Stock Exchange says the All Z is up, which is an index of shares, right? The top 40 is up. The what is up. All of that is simply a system of managing money flow. Guys, this entire system I've just explained to you, all of this, yeah, is what we call the traditional asset class. It means fuck all. In your lives as real entrepreneurs. Dololo. Here's what you need to know. The South African economy is a 3.2 trillion rand economy. The South African economy. The government, the PIC, manages, I understand, 2 trillion rand. Is it 1 or 2? My understanding is 2. Is it 1? 1 point something. So the PIC manages something between 1 and 2 trillion rand in funds. Yeah? Most of that money is circulating here. It's not in the real economy. If you want to, guys, if you want to support Elon Musk, you don't buy Tesla shares. You buy a Tesla. That's so important, I'm going to say it again. Buying Tesla shares doesn't mean you support Elon Musk. Buying a Tesla does. And this is what our government doesn't understand. You can have money circulating in the traditional asset class, in the listed system. It does nothing for entrepreneurs. Because even if unless we are in that system, the money doesn't come to us, right? Make sense? So then you go, why is the economy not growing? Well, it's very simple. It's because you're circulating the money in the same places. And sooner or later, these big businesses just can't grow anymore. It's terminal, right? Now, so some years ago, if you've never read, there is a fascinating book. I read this book many years ago, changed my life, called Barbarians at the Gate. The book tells a story about a company called RJR Nabisco. The company RJR Nabisco created a tiny little biscuit, and the idea behind the biscuit was a wafer of chocolate with cream in the middle, and they wanted to find a way to express it. And the child of RJR Nabisco used to say the word Oreo a lot. And the biscuit became Oreo. Follow me, comrades. I am leading the revolution here, comrades. I'm leading the revolution. So anyway, so this happens, and this company grows to become a massive mammoth business, and a couple of people lined up like barbarians at a gate seeking to take over, and they bought that company for cents on the dollar. Then it was called a hostile takeover. Today, it's what we call the alternative asset class or private equity. The company was listed, so important. It was listed. They bought the shares and delisted it. So the equity wasn't public. It was private. Private equity. Bazalwan. You follow? So this, if you buy a share today at ShopRite, you're playing in the public equity space. Which means private equity is what? It's that which is not listed. But you see, the great thing is if I buy a share at ShopRite, and I'm having dinner with a friend of mine I'm having lunch with a friend of mine at a Wimpy. I wouldn't, but let's imagine I am. I'm not the LSM. No, I'm below. I'm below. I'm below. I'm below. So I got to tell you guys something. So after these masterclasses, we send everybody a link to like rate them. And one of the things people say is like, yo, Vusi says bars, eh? Yeah, bars. No, I mean, it's just my sense of humor. Please don't take any umbrage. Anyway, so if that were the case, right? So I'm sitting with a friend of mine like at lunch over at Wimpy. And I'm having the Wimpy Degwood, which I love. I can't eat it now because I'm on diet. But oh man, that Wimpy Degwood is so good it has human rights. That Wimpy Degwood is the truth. And I mean old school Wimpy Degwood, not the new school Wimpy Degwood. I'm talking when Wimpy used to make Degwoods with real bread. That Wimpy Degwood. So anyway, and this friend of mine says, dude, check this out. You know you've got some shares at Steinhoff? I go, yeah. He says, there's an accounting scandal. A friend of mine who works at company X told me about it. If I was you, I'd sell my shares. So the following morning, I call my stockbroker, or I'll call my banker, and I go, do we have any Steinhoff shares in our portfolio? He says, yes, I sell them. Yeah? And I sell the shares. He can, it's an OTC. He goes to the market, he says, Vusi selling his shares selling at $100. Somebody on the other side says, I'm willing to pay $100. They pay me, I get my $100, they take the shares. 2 weeks later, the story breaks, goes from $100 to zero. Yeah? That's the thing about the public equity class. But private equity is different. What's the first thing about private equity that jumps to your mind? Yeah, it's exclusive, it's locked. Yeah? So if you buy shares in his business, what's your name, sir? Who are you? I mean, Sihle Limited. So I buy 40% of Sihle's business. I give him a million rand of my money for 40% of his business. Yeah? Then you, sir, what's your name? Ongama comes to me and he says, hey, Chief, you know Sihle is running this business badly. And we just got sued by one of our suppliers. They're taking us to the cleaners. If I was you, I'd sell my shares. How do I answer him? Where? Like, where am I going to sell these shares? Because there's no OTC system. Make sense? To buy shares in his business, he would have issued me with a share certificate, but before that, I did a valuation, there was a due diligence, then we issued contracts, he sent me back contracts, guys. Like, I look at the companies we're invested in, just the contracting stage alone is a nightmare. And so I was saying to the team, I was like, can we not find a standard template for every single transaction we do, where we can introduce a few variables, but so we can educate the entrepreneurs we're teaching about a standard term of contract. So the guy doesn't need a professional lawyer he has to pay 100,000 Rand to raise 100,000 Rand. Like, his system is broken, right? So I can't sell his shares. Because I can't sell his shares, I am locked in. And so because I'm locked in, there is something called a premium that my shares have to generate. That's why a lot of small entrepreneurs don't raise money. It's because if I know the information and I can sell the share immediately, it means where there's a risk, I can liquidate the risk. If I'm locked into your business and I can't, it means the return has to pay me for the risk of the fact that I can't get out. You have to generate results better than I can get in the public stock market. So the way the asset manager evaluates your business, asset manager, VC firm, evaluates your business when you're raising money is he uses exactly the same model, typically, we would use for a listed asset class.